We're focusing on the top 5 loadouts because the meta has shrunk after all the nerfs to MW and Cold War weapons. Obviously, at the end of the day, we know why the Vanguard supremacy is there. They want everyone to buy these blueprints, and I normally advocate against buying those. Even though I do have a creator code, people still buy them. They think these look cool. Is it a good build? No, it's trash, and I wouldn't probably use that gun. And I wouldn't recommend the same thing for you. So what we'll be doing is going through the current meta. We're going to get 5 loadouts for you, but we're also going to have a Cold War and Modern Warfare honorable mention because it's good to have those in there in case you do not have these other guns unlocked. If you like one game over another, obviously there is that, even though you'll be at a slight disadvantage intentionally because Vanguard is supposed to be better. We do have a quick sponsor segment before we get in that. Today's video is brought to you by the DraftKings Sportsbook, and we're getting very close to crowning a new NBA champion. And as part of that, DraftKings Sportsbook is putting all new customers in the center of the action. Just by only betting $5 on any of the teams, you're rewarded with $150 in free bets instantly, and it's as simple as that. On top of that, DraftKings Sportsbook customers are also able to bet on the NBA in same game parlays, and where you combine multiple bets on the same game for a bigger payout. The more legs in the bet, the bigger the payout can be. And in case you happen to live in a state where DraftKings Sportsbook is not available yet, DraftKings hosts a huge daily fantasy contest every day of the playoffs, giving away millions per week. So you can download the DraftKings Sportsbook app today using promo code JGOD. Bet $5 on any pro basketball team, and you'll be awarded with $150 of free bets instantly. Again, that's promo code JGOD at DraftKings Sportsbook. Welcome back. So when it comes to Modern Warfare, there's a lot of decent options or viable options, but the overall, probably the best one all around for long range is going to be the Bruin, just because it has a ridiculously fast TTK that makes up for it being an LMG. Still good bullet velocity, all that stuff that makes the gun good. It just is a little bit harder to use because it's so clunky compared to the newer weapons that have come out. And that is, you go monolithic suppressor, the Summit barrel. We use the tac laser, hollow scout, or the 3x, depending if you're in console or whatever, if you want the higher zoom. And then you get the 60 mag, and that'll allow you to get faster reloads, a little bit better ADS. And then you could swap out the tac laser for the Commando foregrip, and that's kind of the only trade you would do, just the gun would be a little bit slower. You could also get rid of the mag and then go Commando, and that makes it okay. You just have to deal with really long reload times. So you kind of got to pick your poison. But if you enjoy Modern Warfare, there you go. The next one is the CX-9, and this one got a little bit hit with the nerf, even though it didn't technically get touched, since they raised the health in Rebirth to match Caldera, and the Caldera health is increased. The damage per mag gets a little bit sketchy with this gun, but it does have a reasonable TTK, fast fire rate, 50 round mag. Is a little bit slower, so we're compensating for that. We're going to be using the CX-38S barrel, which is an integrated barrel with the suppressor, 50 round mag, the tac grip, as well as the CX-FR and the sleight of hand to make up for the fast firing. Empty your mag, you got to get back in there. That's the way you got to go. Next up is the Cold War honorable mention, and they have nerfed essentially almost all of the Cold War guns to the dirt. The only ones that are really practical or viable are ones with bigger magazine sizes, which I hope they change that at some point, but I think we're getting kind of late into the life cycle. The Vargo, most people don't have unlocked, but you could replace this one with the XM4. They're kind of even. The XM4 has a little bit better handling stats in terms of strafe speed, ADS speed, but in terms of DPS and TTKs, they're relatively even. It's just you kind of have to worry about, you know, if you have it unlocked or not. So for the Vargo, we're using Gru Suppressor Task Force, Spetsnaz, the 60 round with the 3X, and you could also go with a few other options if you wanted. AK-47 still okay. It kind of feels like a weaker AMAX, but yeah, there's not a lot of great options, especially for Caldera. Rebirth, you can get away with a little bit more just because the range is a little bit closer, but you kind of got to pick what makes the most sense. OTS is still a lot of fun. I think it is a little bit weak because of the mag size, but the recoil, the strafe speed, you know, a lot of those factors make it really easy to use and a lot of fun. You got to get the quick reload in. It can be a little bit harder in larger modes, but we got Gru Suppressor, Task Force, Skeletal Stock, Serpent with the 40 round fast, and you could get rid of Serpent to put on the Tiger Team Spotlight, or the Bruiser to get that little bit better strafe speed while the hip fire is there as well. So you got a couple different options. And that brings us to the top 3, which I don't think is going to surprise anyone. This first one will be a little bit like, oh, okay, I could see that. And this one kind of got overshadowed recently, the bar, because everyone's kind of jumped over to the NZ or just stuck with the STG because of the versatility. They're not all that slow, but this thing has almost no recoil, super easy to use. decent TTK, moderate bullet velocity, so it can be held back a little bit, but definitely worth the try if you're tired of the other options that we're going to discuss. This one right here is MX Silencer, the 3X, the Carver, Clouser 40 round, the lengthened, stippled hard scope on hand with this pistol grip custom, or 2.5X, or the 3 to 6X. And when it comes to Caldera, primarily it's going to be 3 to 6X, even though the recoil can feel like it's a little bit more. You just kind of got to get used to the handling properties of that. And then we got a Welgun, which is a little bit of a different build. This one's still built a little bit more for that mobility, but we got recoil booster, Gawain short, hand stop, Gorenko 40, the lengthen, hatched, acrobatic, quick, the SA43M pack, which this one's going to help with your horizontal recoil and improve your aim down sight. Your hip fire is a little bit worse, but it's okay. It's not really one of those hip fire machines, especially since you only have a 40 round mag. And then we got the slate reflector. Pretty straightforward. And one thing I will point out with this build is I normally use amped if I'm going to be using the bar. I'm generally always in favor of amped, but a lot of people have been more rocking the Combat Scout just because of how broken that can be at times, just how dumb it is. It should have never been added, but here we are. We got the STG. There's a few different builds of this. This is the one I prefer. I think the 60 round has a little bit too much recoil for most players, and you can kind of build this how it works. And this one is kind of like all around. I think it's personally a little bit better than the NZ in most cases, where it's a long range. In close range, the NZ wins. So it's kind of that trade-off. Where do you normally challenge engagements? Because the NZ struggles at hitting people at range, versus this one, it doesn't, because of that bullet velocity. And what I mean by range is like significant distances where people are moving or flying in the sky. It's super hard to do that with the NZ, and that's where the STG edges it out. But if you don't ever get in those engagements, then the STG will kind of drop a little bit in your ranking. So we got MX Silencer, 760 mm, hand stop, Gorenko, lengthened, taped. We got sleight of hand, on hand, and then we got the Constans Tactical, which helps with a little bit of strafe speed and initial recoil, or you can go with the weighted, which helps with a little bit of the other stuff that you can see there. Aiming stability will lower your aim down sight and make it a little bit slower. And then we got the 3 to 6 or 2.5 on Rebirth, or depending on what platform you're on. Then we got the Type 100. The Type 100 is like the gun. It will win a 1v1 like 99 out of 100 times if the other person's using almost anything else. And the reason for that is this TTK is ridiculous, off the charts. Its range, it beats out pretty much every SMG. The hard part is the damage per mag, and the recoil can be a little bit tricky depending on the range they're at. So I highly like this weapon. I normally play trios and it gets a little bit tricky. I think duos is the god gun. Trios, it requires a little bit more finesse and movement. So if your movement and finesse isn't there, I would say that it could be a little bit of struggle on how you have to challenge gunfights. But it really just depends on how many people you're going to push at once, right? Recoil booster, the rapid, slate reflector, the Warubachi grip folding, sleight of hand, because obviously a small mag, quick grooved, lengthen, and then we got the short, and then the compact. And you could go ahead and run subsonic. I know a lot of people still prefer sneaking off the minimap. This one's good for that, especially if you're going to go ahead and save yourself a little bit of time to get a reload. Might not give away your position versus lengthen. But if you feel like your bullet reg just isn't great for you, or you're missing too many shots that you feel like you should be hitting, lengthen is definitely the way to go. And that brings us to the Meta Chaser build, and this is pretty much anyone you run up against in Caldera or Rebirth Island. They're generally using one of these two guns, especially if they're an average player. This is what they're using. Blixen's kind of annoying to unlock. You got to go ahead and kind of do that. If you have multiplayer, you can do it in Modern Warfare. It takes about 20 minutes. If you want to try and play Plunder or any of those, it's really difficult, tedious. I would try to wait for a free weekend. I wouldn't buy the blueprint, even though blueprint's pretty good, just to save you time, because you're not gonna be able to modify attachments. It's kind of one of those things. It kind of sucks that obviously it's an overpowered thing that you're supposed to unlock, but they want you to have the regular game for that. And then the NZ, we have the burst one, ticket over to fully auto. But at the end of the day, this one currently has a bug that's reducing the bullet velocity on the other barrel that we'll go ahead and be checking out. So we got MX Silencer, the MK1 burst, and right now this is the meta build. But after the update that fixes the bullet velocity, because right now it's not really helping bullet velocity, this one should be the better one, because it'll allow you to do all the things it's weak in that I talked about with the STG. You'll be able to do that. So 3 to 6X, the Orb Weaver, brace fully loaded, polymer lengthened in the 50 round with the hand stop. And then the Blixen, like we already know, this thing smokes, and there's so many good builds. I talked about several of them in my previous video about this gun, but we've got recoil booster, the compact, the Gorenko 54 with hollow point, groove, steady, quick, remove stock, and slate. And then here's where it gets a little bit the advantage, right? If you go with the RMK, the recoil is a little bit harder, but the range, it allows it to get more range. A little bit more recoil, but range. The custom right here, you get a little bit better aim, walking, movement speed. And that one's a little bit more of a straight speed, but the recoil is still there. And then this one definitely helps a lot with the recoil control and accuracy. So I think for most people, they'll probably lead towards this last one. Just because it's a little bit easier to control. When you hit your shots, you win more gunfights generally. And this allows it to help in that intermediate range where sometimes you start missing shots just because they're right outside that range. And that's kind of where we're at. Hit the like button if you made it here. Appreciate the support. Thank you for watching as always. Have a great day.